Do you yearn to become an unshakable rock, the person who no longer feels any sting from criticism, rejection, or loss? Have you ever imagined waking up one day free from that dull ache, that anguish that consumes you while the world watches you smile? Maybe you're exhausted from trying to please others, from trying to uphold an image of strength that saps your energy. In reality, all you've ever wanted is a moment's respite from the pressure of being untouchable. This mask, which Jung called the persona, did not come from nowhere. You built it piece by piece since childhood, learning which parts of yourself were acceptable to family, school, and society, and which parts had to be hidden so as not to be judged or abandoned. It is the mask of the good guy, the strong woman, the unflappable intellectual. But wearing this mask comes at a high cost, a sense of fraud, a constant fear of being exposed, and a deep disconnection from who you really are in the silence of your soul. There is a truth that few dare to speak. As long as you run away from pain, it will remain your master. As long as you try to anesthetize yourself, build walls and hide behind a mask, you will remain a prisoner of every word and every silence. But before continuing, like the video, share it with those who could benefit from it, and write us in the comments from which city you follow our channel. Your support allows us to continue creating content like this, to grow together. Carl Jung, one of the pioneers of depth psychology, taught us that we are not the product of what happens to us, but of what we choose to become. The true key to our freedom lies precisely in this conscious and courageous choice. The solution is not to protect yourself from the world, nor to become cold, detached, or indifferent to the pain you feel. On the contrary, it is about integrating, about bringing to the light of consciousness everything that hurts you today while it acts in the shadows of your mind. True strength, in fact, is not the absence of suffering, but the full awareness of who you are, even when you feel like you're bleeding inside. If this video found you, it's not by chance. It's for you who are tired of feeling at the mercy of events and people. I want to show you that you can take back your power, but to do so, you will have to face some uncomfortable truths. Maybe, for the first time in your life, it will be that very pain you have always avoided that will finally and completely set you free. You are convinced that the cause of your wound is outside, in the actions of others, in their words, in the abandonments you have suffered. The truth, however, is brutal. Nothing and no one has the power to hurt you unless they find a wound already open inside you. What hurts you is not the event itself, but what that event activates in your inner world. It is the narrative you build around it. It is the old trauma that has never healed. It is that emptiness that you desperately try to mask with pride and strength. This is where one of Jung's most powerful and misunderstood concepts comes into play: the shadow. The shadow is the container of everything you have disowned about yourself. Not just your flaws or weaknesses, but often also talents, healthy aggression, and passions that you have judged to be wrong. When something about another person irritates you disproportionately, when you judge them viciously for their arrogance, their weakness, or their freedom, you are most likely watching a piece of your own shadow projected onto them. You are fighting against yourself. Jung shows us how the pain we feel in the face of the world is nothing but the mirror of what we have not yet resolved within ourselves. This is why some people go through emotional storms and remain firm, while others collapse over a simple comment. And here comes a hard-to-accept reality. You still suffer so much because, deep down, you believe you can control how the world treats you. You still hope that if you are good enough, strong enough, or perfect enough, no one will ever be able to hurt you again. But control is just an illusion, and as long as you hold on to it, you will live in constant tension, trying to anticipate the unpredictable. Do you really want to stop suffering? Then stop protecting yourself from suffering. You don't need more control, you need more awareness. As long as you believe that others must change for you to feel good, you will remain a slave to their actions. Your freedom begins when you understand that every external stimulus has power only if it finds an echo within your psyche. This is where the real battle is fought, in your unconscious. Jung explained it clearly. Everything that you do not bring to the light of consciousness ends up ruling your life from the shadows, and you will call it fate. The sudden pain, the anger that explodes without warning, the melancholy that assails you without a reason, none of this is random. They are messages that come from parts of you that you have forgotten, ignored, or repressed over time. This dark territory, which Jung called the unconscious, is not a simple fog of thoughts. It is an active force, a system of memories, desires, and fears that, although not visible, constantly determine how you feel and how you act. Do you wonder why a word can destroy you, while for others it is meaningless? Because that word touches a raw nerve inside you, a wound that you have never truly faced, but have only hidden under the carpet of your psyche. We cannot change anything until we accept it, said Jung. Condemnation does not liberate, but oppresses. Yet all your life, you have judged and silenced parts of yourself, hoping that this would solve the problem at its root. But the unconscious doesn't disappear if you ignore it. It just finds more subtle ways to manifest itself. In the toxic relationships you repeat, in the self-sabotaging patterns you can't break, in the anxiety that emerges just when everything seems to be going well. This is not bad luck. It is your unconscious knocking on the door to wake you up, but you insist on sleeping. If you want to stop being hurt, you have to stop running away from what you carry inside. As long as you do that, you are just a puppet of your emotions. The way out is not to defend yourself, but to integrate. How does this integration happen? Not through fighting, but through honest, non-judgmental observation. Starting to ask, what part of me is feeling this way? Where is this reaction coming from? It is about embracing the shadow instead of fighting it. It is about acknowledging your envy, your anger, or your fear without condemning yourself, but seeing them as vital energies that, if understood and channeled, can become sources of incredible power and creativity. Becoming untouchable is not an act of resistance, but of deep and total self-knowledge. This is the next step, understanding what it really means to be a person who no longer falters. Most people believe that the only way to not suffer is to close themselves off. They build walls, wear masks, and pretend that nothing touches them, repeating, "I don't care." But inside they continue to bleed in silence. The problem has never been feeling too much. The problem is not knowing what you are feeling and why. This only happens to those who have not yet truly known themselves. Jung said, "You know all the theories, but when you touch a soul, just be another soul." Becoming emotionally strong is not about being cold or ignoring pain. It is about accepting and bringing to light all that you have buried. You do not become invulnerable by creating a barrier, but by realizing that no one can touch what you have already embraced. When you integrate your shadows, your fears, and your insecurities, you stop reacting and start choosing. This is true freedom. Jung called this process individuation, the path to becoming who you really are, not who others expect you to be. Finding is not a process of improvement, but of completion. You don't have to become a better person. You just have to become a whole person. The secret is that the more you run away from pain, the more it chases you. The more you try not to let it touch you, the more fragile you become. When you face your wounds and accept who you are, with your light and your shadow, nothing on the outside will have the power to dismantle you. This path requires courage, the courage to look inside yourself, to abandon the masks, and to feel to the core. Since you were a child, you were taught to hate pain, to see it as a sign of weakness. And so you started to run, to deny, to repress. But ignored suffering does not disappear. It digs tunnels inside you until one day everything collapses. Jung saw suffering differently, as the messenger of the soul, the language our true self uses to get our attention. He said, "Depression is like a lady in black. If she shows up, don't chase her away, but invite her to sit down and listen to what she has to say." Jung saw in this process an echo of ancient alchemy, where the raw lead of suffering, chaos, and primordial pain, the prima materia, is slowly transformed into the gold of consciousness and wholeness, lapis philosophorum. Your anxiety, your anger, your sadness are not enemies to be defeated. They are the alchemical fire necessary for transformation. To avoid it means to remain forever in the state of lead, heavy, and unaware. To cross it means to become gold. Suffering hurts so much because you are at war with yourself. One part of you wants to grow, while another part wants everything to stay the same. It is from this internal friction, this resistance to change, that the real torment arises. Letting go of old beliefs, cutting toxic ties, allowing what is no longer useful to die. All of this is mourning. But it is precisely from this space of ruin that something new can be born, that you can finally see who you are without filters. In that moment, suffering becomes sacred, because it brings you to your knees in front of the only thing that can make you free, yourself. Pain is not the end of the road, but the beginning of the journey towards your wholeness, towards your individuation. Few people have the courage to begin the journey of individuation, and even fewer complete it. This journey does not provide comfort. It does not protect your ego. It dismantles it. You begin to realize that much of what defined you was only an illusion. You are not your successes, nor your traumas, nor the image you have constructed to be loved. All of this is what you have created to survive, but surviving is not living. Individuation is the calling of life beyond mere survival. You become untouchable not because nothing touches you anymore, but because you have already been through the fire. You have looked into the eyes of your demons, your shame and your anger, and said, "I see you, but you no longer control me." That is true strength. You no longer need outside approval because you know who you are and no one can take that away from you. You may feel pain, but it won't break you. You may be hurt, but you are not lost, because you have stopped being reactive and have become whole. Finally, there is one thing that needs to be said with extreme clarity. Nothing will ever protect you from external pain if you remain unaware of what is happening inside. Words will continue to hurt until you choose to wake up every day. Awakening is a choice. It is looking inside even when it hurts. It is taking responsibility for what you feel, no longer blaming the world. Carl Jung said, "What you resist persists. What you accept transforms." You've spent your life resisting, hiding, trying to be perfect, and it's all gotten you here, exhausted. But now you know that true emotional immunity is not hardness, it's awareness. It's not armor, it's expansion. When you understand your own wounds and patterns, the actions of others lose their destructive power. Those who live on the surface are overwhelmed by every wave. Those who dive into their depths find stability, silence, and power. And that is your true home.